What's up, guys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden. We're going to be continuing Dreamland again today by Sam Quinones. This is part 2 of chapter 29, I believe. Liberace Shows the Way. We're going to be starting here on page 156. 50 miles away, an addict who sometimes went by the name of Jeremy Wilder saw easy money and grabbed it. Wilder, a tall, lanky guy with a heavy Appalachian drawl, was raised downriver from Portsmouth in the one-stoplight town of Aberdeen, situated between two power plants in Brown County. Jeremy was a union carpenter, but he grew up around the kind of moral ambivalence that characterized life in the small Ohio River Valley towns as the Rust Belt took shape. The easy money got the better of him. In 1995, Jeremy heard that Dr. Fortune Williams had been hired by David Proctor to start up a clinic out in Garrison, Kentucky. Williams was the first doc Jeremy went to as he emerged as one of the first pill dealers in this county. He paid Williams $250 for the visit and $200 more for prescriptions that included OxyContin. Jeremy later found a doctor in Williamsburg, Ohio, and another in Portsmouth to supply him with pills as well. I met Jeremy as I traveled to the heartland of the opiate plague, bisected by the Ohio River. Through him, I realized that as the pain revolution spread, powered by Oxy, the area once starved for health care had seen doctors descend on it like locusts. By the mid-1990s, Jeremy Wilder was the biggest pill dealer in Aberdeen, while still working carpentry jobs in Cincinnati and around southern Ohio. He had a window in his house to which users in the area literally beat a path. At first, Jeremy didn't use the drugs he sold. But one night at a party, he broke down and snorted an Oxy, and that was it. Soon he was selling to support his habit. Then in Cincinnati one day, he couldn't find Oxys. A neighbor of his, Cincinnati connection, could get something else, black tar heroin. Jeremy balked. He wanted no part of heroin. But the next day, he couldn't take the dope sick anymore. The guy phoned a Mexican who brought over small balloons of black tar heroin. Jeremy never took the pills again. For the next 2 years, he barely existed. He drove daily to Cincinnati to buy pills from a woman and his tar from the Mexicans. He sold the pills to pay for the heroin he used. For a while, each balloon he bought from the Mexicans came with a paper attached and a phone number. Call any time. He never forgot that. He guessed they were just starting out. He was new to heroin and wondered if all traffickers marketed like that, but he figured they did not. In late '98, Jeremy Wilder from the town of Aberdeen in rural Brown County was among the first in southern Ohio to make the transition from OxyContin to heroin. He was not the last. About that year, reports from the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure's second investigation into David Proctor began telling strange tales. He was losing all control, manipulating damaged and addicted women for sex. One upset Kentucky medical inspector who reviewed dozens of patient records from Proctor during the late 1990s used terms like gross incompetence, negligence, and malpractice. Proctor, the inspector wrote, didn't even record a patient's weight, height, pulse, or temperature. Dr. Proctor's records are extremely poor, and I am unable to tell what exactly was prescribed in each visit from his notes, he wrote. Of a second Proctor patient, there is significant lack of evidence of evaluation and alternative treatment to this patient except for the use of controlled substances. And a third, there did not appear to be any type of practice of medicine involved except for the description of symptoms by the patient and the doctor writing for controlled substances. I do not believe this constitutes the practice of medicine. Patient complaints prompted the investigation. Among them, 3 women reported they repeatedly had sex with Proctor in his office at his insistence in exchange for prescriptions. One said Proctor pushed her to have sex with him, threatening not to give her an office job or help with her husband's workers' comp claim if she did not allow him to lick her vagina, though her toddler son was in the room when he did it. Another went to Proctor for depression that grew from an abortion she had at 18. On the first visit, she said, Proctor told her to write a letter outlining all of her problems, which they would review. With each visit, she would write a letter about her emotional problems, which he would review, and then have sex with her. After a few such visits, the letter reading was dispensed with and Proctor got straight to the sex. On the last of 20 visits, She took a drug overdose in his office, and he had a nurse drive her home. After that, she told investigators she entered drug rehab. In November 1998, Proctor had a car accident. He claimed it left him with short-term memory loss, unable to practice medicine. People were skeptical. Some suggested Proctor used the injuries as a ruse, saying he could no longer remember where certain patients' records were or how he had treated them. Either way, he relinquished his medical license to the state of Kentucky, but kept his pain clinic open. He hired doctors from across the country to staff it, docs for whom the job of wantonly prescribing opiates was the one and only one available. In the hollowing out of small-town America, the pill mill doc was a kind of coup de grace. In so many towns, locally owned businesses had expired. Family diners were replaced by Applebee's, and town hardware stores by Home Depot. Then ersatz pain physicians replaced family docs and became about the only health care in towns that some towns even had. Around northern Kentucky and southern Ohio, Proctor's docs were initially hailed for coming to the area. In truth, they were vinegar in the mouth of a crucified region. In the 3 years following his car accident, Proctor hired 15 doctors. They arrived with histories of drug use, previously suspended licenses, and mental problems, ready to prescribe while working for Proctor for $2,500 a week. That's a lot of money for, Jesus. Some of these doctors stayed. They learned the business. Then they left to set up their own pain clinics in nearby small towns, taking with them office staff trained by Proctor. One Kentucky lawman dubbed him Ray Kroc, for the man who spread McDonald's restaurants nationwide. Proctor's business model spread like a virus, unleashing unstable doctors on a vulnerable region. Dr. Frederick Cohn worked for Proctor before relocating to an abandoned supermarket in the town of Paintsville, population 3,400, in eastern Kentucky, where he saw as many as 146 patients a day, 3 minutes each, while lines formed outside. Cohn had pre-printed prescriptions for various narcotics, including Oxy, Lortab, Soma, and Xanax. He prescribed the same pills in the same amounts over and over throughout the day, no matter the patient's complaint. 2.7 million pills in 1 year. Dr. Stephen Snyder worked for Proctor for several months in 1999 before leaving to start his own pain clinic. Snyder once had his medical license suspended in Indiana and Florida for drug use. He was a longtime drug user. But in 1997, apparently unaware of his past, the state of Kentucky granted him an osteopath's license. While working for Proctor, Snyder was addicted to Lorset and was injecting OxyContin while writing narcotics prescriptions 10 and 12 hours a day. He told a DEA investigator that he often split prescriptions with patients, supplying his own habit and that of his wife. Dr. Fortune Williams worked for Proctor before moving to Garrison, Kentucky, where he worked a clinic owned by Nancy Sadler, a former Proctor employee. On some days, he saw patients for 90 seconds at a time and issued 46,000 controlled substances prescriptions for a total of 2.3 million pills in 9 months. Dr. Rodolfo Santos worked in Proctor's clinic for a while, during which time at least one of his patients died. An investigator wrote that Santos displayed, quote, gross ignorance, gross negligence, gross incompetence, and a level of care that I would not find acceptable in a first-year medical student. Santos said he knew he was dealing with addicted patients who lied and scammed drugs from him, but that he was trying to educate them. Who will help them? He told an investigator. As the pain revolution spread across the country, so too did pain clinics, places where people in pain went for treatment, most often in the form of the opiate painkillers that were now accepted in modern medicine. The pain clinic became a business model, repeated over and over, and many were legitimate. But the business also attracted doctors who were unethical or compromised from the start. Even doctors whose intentions were honorable occasionally had their scruples worn out and warped by the temptation and constant pressure from pain patients and drug-seeking addicts. In either case, many clinics became places where doctors dispensed prescriptions like candy for cash and became known as pill mills. Once these businesses got going, they didn't just prescribe opiate painkillers such as Vicodin or OxyContin. There also emerged, in the wake of David Proctor, a taste in the Rust Belt and Appalachia for the class of psychoactive drugs known as benzodiazepines. Valium was the first benzo, but Xanax bars were the most popular. As Proctor showed his clients, benzodiazepines combined with opiates were especially potent and addictive. Both were depressants and very dangerous when taken together, but addicts grew to love the two together as benzos seemed to enhance the euphoria of the opiates. The combined prescription of opiates and benzos was a hot ticket at pill mills in Portsmouth and elsewhere. I asked a detective, seasoned by investigations into many of these clinics, to describe the difference between a pill mill and a legitimate pain clinic. "Look at the parking lot," he said. "If you see lines of people standing around outside smoking, people getting pizza delivered, fist fights, and traffic jams, if you see people in pajamas who don't care what they look like in public, that's a pill mill." And that's what popped up all over Portsmouth, growing from David Proctor's first clinic. Proctor, meanwhile, gained the DEA's attention. The agency launched an investigation into Plaza Healthcare. Proctor pleaded guilty to conspiring to distribute prescription medications. He then fled to Canada with a Cincinnati bail bondswoman who was neither his wife nor his mistress, a few days before he was to be sentenced. They were captured at the Canadian border with $40,000 and plane tickets to the Cayman Islands. His lawyer, Gary Rocky Billeter, aided the escape. Proctor was returned to Kentucky, where he had already testified against Drs. Williams and Santos in court in return for a lighter sentence in his own case. He eventually served 11 years in prison. Santos and Williams also went off to prison, as did Cohn and Snyder and Billeter. With that, the era of the pill mill owned by doctors from out of town drew to a close in Portsmouth, Ohio. David Proctor ended up at the federal prison and hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, that was once the narcotic farm. I wrote to him there toward the end of his sentence, asking to hear what he had to say about Portsmouth, pills, pain clinics, and his legacy. He declined, and a year later was released. As the pain revolution was taking hold across the country, however, Proctor and his physician progeny showed a beat-down region a brand new business model. Before long, some of the first locally owned businesses in years opened in Portsmouth, known to folks in town as the Pain Managements. All right, we'll continue with The Man in the Heartland, page 161, very soon, a couple of days. Hope you're enjoying the book, guys. Keep fighting that good fight out there. I'll talk to you later.